Tecware Exo Elite is a specs-wise, build-wise, pretty much perfect gaming mouse. It's 49 Singapore dollars, and for the price, you get a gaming mouse that delivers every single feature you might want. So the only thing that might stop you from buying this gaming mouse is its shape. So straight up, we're just gonna talk about the shape before we talk about anything else. Because this mouse is literally the best gaming mouse for 49 Singapore dollars, and it might be the best gaming mouse for you at any price range if the shape is the right one. So let's talk about it. Now, before I start talking about the shape of this gaming mouse, if you have any questions you want to ask specifically about anything, Discord, Instagram, linked in the description of the YouTube comments, I reply to anything. So let's talk about this gaming mouse shape, because every other aspect of this gaming mouse, I can frankly say, is pretty much all you need, if not perfect. The shape then. So I'm going to put up some dimensions on the screen. I specifically bought a vernier caliper to measure out the mouse so you can get an understanding of the scale of this mouse. My hands, for comparison's sake, is 21 cm from here to here, and 9 cm from here to here, and about 6 cm from here to here. So you can get an idea of how thick and chunky my hand is. So my hand's pretty big, and for my hand it's very comfortable to palm or hybrid claw and palm grip with. But I do find that claw gripping this mouse is just not a good idea. And I generally find that claw grips on mice with this general design philosophy of a sculpted ergonomic style of mouse is not a good idea anyway, so that's understandable. Now I'm going to be comparing it with my G305. Partly because that's my daily driver, but mostly because the G305 is a completely different kind of mouse shape that represents another sort of mouse design philosophy. I think with mouse design there's two kinds of things. There's the really ergonomic, supportive, kind of sculpted mouse, like the Def Adder, that's on the extreme end of the spectrum. And then you've got the mice that have very little ergonomic support and grooves and all that for your fingers, and where it doesn't guide your hand as to where it goes. You just kind of grip it and it works. And that's the other, and on the extreme end of the spectrum, you've got mice like the G305 or the G102, which is my kind of thing. So this, I would say, is kind of in between. It does have that ergonomic, sculpted feel and look and shape. But it's not so sculpted that, you know, your fingers are forced into a very specific position on the mouse because the grooves are so deep and they're like coated with rubber, and you know, I don't like those kind of super ergonomic mouse. But if you're coming from a Razer Def Adder, you're looking for something to replace your Def Adder, this isn't it. Because this is not like the Def Adder. This, I would say, is more like a Rocket mouse or a Zowie mouse, or a Glorious Model O mouse, or a SteelSeries mouse, where it's kind of in between. It's not super sculpted that your fingers must be in a specific position on the mouse to be comfortable, but it's also not the kind of mouse where it has no guidance at all for your fingers. There are definitely sculptures and grooves that guide your fingers. So on the mouse clicks, you've got a groove that guide your fingers to be in that nice spot. It's very comfortable, very nice. And on the sides, you've got these grooves slightly downwards, but not too much, that guide your thumb and your fourth and pinky finger to the side. Very nice, very comfortable, very nice. Now on the back, you've got a kind of a wide hips on this mouse, kind of thick, you know, kind of like Shakira, hips don't lie kind of mouse. It's thick and it gives support for your thumb muscle and your pinky muscle, just like many ergonomic mouse. It's not too wide that it kind of is in the way that like some mice might be, so that's good. But I personally just don't like this part at all. I personally like my gaming mouse to be really narrow in the back, but this is just personal preference. If you're someone coming from a Zowie mouse, or you are looking at the Glorious Model O and you like that shape, I think this one is actually pretty good for you. However, compared to those Zowie mouse, the Glorious Model O, I find that compared to those mice that I've tried in the shops, this mouse is a bit more arched in the top. It's a bit fatter and plumper upwards, so it's a bit taller. So as a result, you have a bit more of a support in the middle of your hand. However, to those people who really claw their mice, this is not much of an issue, but people who really palm their mice and like their mice flat, you know, as low as possible, this might be a concern. So I'm just pointing that out if you're into the Zowie mice, because this does have a difference to those Zowie mice, which I find look very flat. The SteelSeries Rival 500 especially is a super low profile mouse, and if you like that kind of low profile, this is a bit more chunky. Not as chunky as the G403, mind you, but still a bit more chunky. So that's the shape of this mouse. I personally think it's pretty good. Whether I'll change from a G305 from it is no, because while Tecware did send me this mouse, they didn't give me this mouse. It's not something I gotta keep. They're not paying me, by the way, to say anything good, I guess. But it's not my kind of tea. It's not my cup of tea. I'm more of a coffee person. But then again, if it does look like the mouse for you and the dimensions kind of fit the size of your hands, I think it is definitely a pretty comfortable mouse to use, and it's not extreme in any way. So I think the general population of people who are gaming and looking for a gaming mouse should be okay with it. Okay, so let's talk about the rest of the hardware. And the reason I didn't talk about it until I've talked about the shape is because, as I said, if you're worrying about anything else with this mouse, it's fine. The only thing you should care about is its shape. Its mouse clicks are very well tensioned. They're not super light, but they're not super stiff either. In fact, they're actually quite crisp to click. They're on-run switches. I know some people don't like on-run switches. I've never run into problems with them, so that's fine. You've got a click behind the scroll wheel, which is nice. You've got a scroll wheel, which I find a bit too light for my liking, but it's a perfectly doable scroll wheel. It's covered in rubber. It's very similar to the Tecware scroll wheel, which is nice. You've got 2 thumb buttons, reprogrammable in software. More about the software later. They're very clicky. They get the job done. Very nice. Oh, and the mouse click are separate from the main shell of the mouse. So very, very good. I like that because it keeps the clicks consistent and thorough, which is nice. And on the bottom, you've got 4 mice feet, which come with replacement in the box. Good thing. And a lift-off switch. A lift-off button switch that adjusts the lift-off distance between 2 and 3 millimeters, which I always leave on the lower settings because I don't know why anyone would want a high lift-off distance. Can you just tell me why in the comments? And the sensor is over here. Now, the reason I didn't talk about things like this sensor is because it's good. It's a PMW3389 sensor. It's one of those sensors where if you can't aim with it, you can't aim. I keep saying this with modern gaming mice. It's no longer got to do with the sensor. Like, you stop worrying about what sensor it uses because most of the sensors out there are pretty good. And with this PMW3389, this sensor is literally perfect. It's the same sensor as found on the first G502 before Logitech took the 3389 and modified it and called it their own hero sensor. But it is the same sensor essentially, so the performance is there. It's got no acceleration as far as I can tell, no pixel smoothing, very nice and low lift-off distance. We've got it doesn't spin out when you move your mouse too fast, and it goes up to 16,000 DPI if you want to, but I usually just run it at a native DPI of 800, which gets the job done. Okay, the cable is nice and braided. I don't find it too hefty or, you know, too kind of chunky, and it doesn't really kink, which is good. I find the problem with a lot of braided cables is they're too stiff and too tight, and as a result they kink a lot, and that sucks. But with this braided cable, it's kind of funny because it has a bit of slack surrounding the cable. So as a result, you've got this cable that is very loose feeling, but because of that, it's light and easy to move around and flexible. So that's a good thing. The cable length is pretty good. I find it too long because I plug it into a USB port hub on my table. But it should be enough to reach from your table to your computer if your computer is on the floor. It's just no problem at all. It's long enough. Get yourself a mouse bungee because this is a wired mouse, obviously, and not a wireless mouse. But having been used to my G305, which is a wireless mouse at this point, this mouse is, I don't need it. I don't like wireless. I don't like wired anymore. But very nice. But another advantage of it being a wired mouse is it is very, very light. So one might have noticed the holes are there. Now this might trigger some people's trypophobia, but I think it's very nice because it makes the mouse even lighter. It comes in at 69 grams. So this is another aspect of the mouse that there's nothing to complain about. Sure, if you remove the RGB strips and the logos inside, maybe they will make an Exo Elite ultralight where they remove everything and make this mouse even lighter at like 50-40 grams, but at 69 grams it's a very light mouse. I would like a lighter mouse than this, because why not, right? But it is definitely light enough and it's comfortable. And if you're against light gaming mouse, you have a problem, because there's no reason not to like a light gaming mouse. A light gaming mouse is good for your wrist health, and even if you aim worse than it, I don't think your aim and your FPS's performance is going to be more important than the health of your wrists. Keeping a light mouse means less stress and less tension on your already weirdly pronated wrists when you're gaming. So, light gaming mouse, good thing. No matter how you want to argue it, light is good. If not for aim, at the very least, your health. Okay, so that's it for this gaming mouse. What else have I not talked about? Oh yeah, the software. The software for this gaming mouse, you can download it from the Tecware website. Is not anything special, but I don't want it to be special. I just need to change my RGB colors when